We're on the Mediterranean coast, and I said, why don't we take off our shoes and go into the water, which we wanted to purify, and we did, with Israeli technology. So, with all deference to our Christian friends, they said we didn't wade in the water, we walked on water. That's not true. We didn't walk on water, but we did perform miracles since then. Because what we have done is we've doubled our trade, tripled our cooperation, quadrupled our understandings in ways that I cannot begin to describe. And in some ways, probably shouldn't describe. But it's been a wondrous friendship, both personally, between the two of us, and between our two countries and our two peoples. You know, earlier today, my wife Sarah and I greeted you in the airport, and just as you came down the steps, we embraced each other. Because Prime Minister Modi's personal embrace is something special. It's called the Modi hug. It's well known around the world. And when you hug someone closely, truly, you know it's not an act. It's a real thing. It's called the Modi hug. So I want to return the hug here too from every single one of the Knesset members. And it's not only an indication of the personal relations, of the personal friendship between us, but it really reflects the warmth of the tie between our two peoples. Now, India, as you know, India is a gigantic power of almost 1.5 billion people. Israel is somewhat smaller, somewhat. But Israel is gigantic too. It's a gigantic power, gigantic in spirit, gigantic in deed, capable of performing miracles. And I want to say that the alliance between us is an enormous multiplier of our individual powers. Enormous multiplier. It's a multiplier of the spirit and the multiplier of deeds and capabilities. We are two ancient civilizations going back thousands of years. And if you look at where human civilization developed on the planet, it developed in a few places. And chief among them, the Indus Valley and the Jordan Valley. These are the places where enormous things developed, enormous spiritual things, conceptual things, matters of the heart, matters of the mind, matters of morality. We're two ancient civilizations, and we had to go through the voyage of time, the odyssey of time, with so many trials and tribulations, and yet 80 years ago we emerged, the two of us, from British rule. Almost 80 years, almost at the same time, achieved our independence. We share so many common interests. We're two democracies. You're a gigantic democracy, but Israel is also, think about what we had to do, what we had to go through, and how we maintained our democracy against challenges that I believe few countries, if any, have faced. We are now deepening our deep bond, את הברית החזקה, האסטרטגית, הגלויה שיצרנו. יצרנו ברית גלויה. ולא פחות מזה, שתי המדינות שלנו נמצאות בשיא כוחן. ישראל חזקה מאי פעם, והודו חזקה מאי פעם. אמרתי עכשיו לראש ממשלת הודו, שישבנו אצלך במשרד, אדוני היושב-ראש, אמרתי, אני עוקב, באופן אישי, אני עוקב אחרי כל הידיעות שמגיעות מהודו. הודו עכשיו מדורגת ממספר כזה וכזה בעולם, גבוה גבוה. הודו עכשיו השיגה יעד נוסף, גבוה גבוה. הודו עשתה כך והודו עשתה כך. אני אומר, קודם כל, נרנדרה עשה, ויחד איתו העם ההודי, ואני כל כך מרוצה, אני רק אומר, עוד ועוד ועוד. כי ב-12 השנים תחת מנהיגותך אתה יזמת רפורמות, אתה השקעת בתשתיות, אתה עשית בתעסוקה, בבריאות, בחקלאות, ברווחה, באיכות החיים, באנרגיה, בטכנולוגיה, בחדשנות. רציתי להגיד לכם, השמיים הם הגבול, מה פתאום? הודו היא מעצמת חלל, אחת הגדולות בעולם, שמיים לא הגבול. כלומר, האתגרים אף פעם לא נגמרים, אבל הודו, בהנהגתך, ידידי, ביססה את מעמדה כאריה אסייתי שמסתער על היעד. עוד צמיחה, עוד קדמה, עוד שגשוג, עוד שגשוג. ואני רוצה לומר לך, חברי נרנדרה, יש עוד סיבה להערכה עמוקה שאתה זוכה לה פה בבית הזה ומהציבור בישראל. כי מיד לאחרי הטבח הנורא ב7 באוקטובר, מיד אחרי ההתקפה הרצחנית הזאת, אתה התייצבת בצורה כל כך ברורה, כל כך מוסרית, כל כך חדה, התייצבת לצד ישראל. You didn't flinch, you didn't waver, you didn't give excuses. You stood next to Israel, you stood by Israel, you stood for Israel, you stood for the truth. Thank you, my friend. אנחנו אף פעם לא נשכח זאת. אנחנו יודעים מול מה אנחנו התייצבנו. אבל רבים בעולם, אולי בסימפתיה רגעית, ראשונית, שכחו מהר מאוד. ישראל מתייצבת, ניצבה ומתייצבת, בחזית של הציוויליזציה מול האסלאם הקיצוני. ובסיס האם של האסלאם הקיצוני הוא המזרח התיכון. אבל הלבה שפולט הר הגעש של הקנאות הזאת, הלבה הזאת מתפשטת במהירות לכל יבשת, לכל מדינה. הודו כמו ישראל ידע פיגועי טרור קשים שגבו את חייהם של חפים מפשע. כשרעייתי שרה ואני ביקרנו במומבאי, היינו באותו מלון מפורסם שבו הייתה התקפה הרצחנית הזאת, ומשם הלכנו כמה מטרים למרכז חב"ד, ששם טרוריסטים מתועבים רצחו את הזוג, שני הורים צעירים של הילד מוישה. ומי הציל את מוישה? מי שהצילה את מוישה הייתה האומנת ההודית שלו. גם את זה לא נשכח אף פעם. הודו תומכת בישראל, וישראל תומכת בהודו, גם במקרים שהם ידועים, וגם במקרים שהם פחות ידועים. הודו תומכת בישראל, כי היא מבינה שישראל משמשת קיר מגן מפני הברבריות, ואנחנו עושים זאת קודם כל להגן על עצמנו, אבל גם בשירות העולם התרבותי. ישראל, כמו הודו, היא מבצר של דמוקרטיה, של חופש, של זכויות אדם, במרחב פראי רוחש סכנות. הטבח של 7 באוקטובר הבהיר חד משמעית, או שציר הרשע הג'יהאדיסטי ישבור אותנו, או שאנחנו נשבור אותו, ואנחנו שוברים ונשבור אותו. ועשינו זאת ואנחנו עושים זאת בזכות הגבורה של לוחמינו, הלוחמים והלוחמות, המפקדים והמפקדות שלנו, איזה גבורה, איזה גבורה. ידידי נרנדרה, הייתי רוצה להפגיש אותך, אם יהיה זמן, עם כמה מהם. צריך לראות אותם. הייתי רוצה להפגיש אותך עם הפצועים שלנו. חלקם קטועי גפיים. יש אחד מהם, אני אביא את התמונה שלו הערב, אני רוצה להראות לך. קוראים לו ארי, which means lion, ארי שפיץ. And Ari lost his 2 legs and his arms, one of his arms. And he has prosthetics. He's sitting there smiling, cheering with his one healthy arm. And he says, Israel lives, Am Yisrael Chai. בזכות הגבורה של לוחמינו, בזכות ההחלטות המושכלות והאמיצות שקיבלה ממשלת ישראל שפרוסה פה לפניך, בזכות העמידה האיתנה של אזרחינו, בזכות כל אלה הכינו את אויבינו שוק על ירך בשבע חזיתות של מלחמת התקומה. אבל ידידי היקר, אנחנו שילמנו מחירים יקרים. ואני רוצה לספר לך שגם לוחמים ולוחמות ממשפחות יוצאות הודו נפלו בקרבות. אנחנו מרכינים ראש לזכרם יחד עם כל גיבורינו שנפלו. מלחמת המגן שלנו היא מלחמה צודקת מאין כמוה, אבל זו לא רק מלחמה בשדה הקרב. זו מלחמה על האמת, זו מלחמה על עתיד האנושות. ואני חייב להגיד שאנחנו רואים שבקרב על עתיד האנושות, גם הפעם האנטישמיות מרימה ראש. היינו שם רק לפני 80 שנה וראינו את זה. האנטישמיות שמתחילה עם היהודים ואחר כך מסכדת את האנושות כולה. אל מול גלי האנטישמיות והשקרים שמותחים בינינו, לא הרכנו ראש. אבל גם במאבק הזה, נרנדרה, מצאנו בך ובהודו ידידי אמת. In a world where anti-Semitism is rising, India stands out. A civilization where Jews were never persecuted by the state, only welcomed. We don't forget that too. Thank you, India. נרנדרה, ידידי ראש ממשלת הודו, מול האסלאם הקיצוני שמאיים על האנושות כולה ועל המדינות החופשיות, נבנה יחד ברית ברזל. ברית של מדינות שדוגלות במתינות, בקדמה, בכבוד האדם, בכבוד הדדי. ברית של מדינות שמקדשות את החיים ושמוכנות להילחם נגד אלה שסוגדות למוות ורוצות להחזיר אותנו אל הברבריות האפלה של ימי הביניים. בשבוע הבא אנחנו נחגוג את חג הפורים, והעם היהודי יקרא את מגילת אסתר מתוך התנ"ך. הודו מוזכרת שם, כפי שאמרת יושב ראש, בתיאור ממלכת פרס ומדי הקדומה, שכדברי המגילה הסתרה מהודו עד כוש. קהילות יהודיות התקיימו במשך הדורות בהודו. מאז שזכינו בעצמאותנו, רבבות יהודים ילידי הודו באו לישראל, ולאחרונה החלטנו בממשלה לעלות לארץ חלק מקהילת בני המנשה בהודו. פגשנו את הנציגים שלהם, ילדים חמודים, ואחד מההורים אמר לי, אנחנו לא בני מנשה, אנחנו בני ישראל, נכון מאוד, והם עולים ארצה, מתוך רצונם להיקלט במדינתנו. כי הכמיהה לציון, הכמיהה לארץ ישראל, עומדת בלב החזון הציוני. את זה הבינו כמה מגדולי הרוח של הודו, שהתייחסו לציונות בראשית דרכה באהדה גדולה. ביניהם היה המשורר הדגול טגור. טגור זכה בפרס נובל לספרות עוד לפני מלחמת העולם הראשונה. במהלכו, מלחמת העולם הראשונה, I know you know this, but I want to make sure that everyone knows this. In the First World War, when we were still under Ottoman occupation, those who helped us liberate this country, the British Army, in which there were Jewish fighters, including Jabotinsky, with the 1st Jewish Battalion, but also brave Iranian soldiers and commanders who fought like lions in the battle against Haifa for the liberation of Haifa. The forces were pushed back, and who stormed forward, gave their lives? Indian commanders. We never forget that too. They gave their lives for us. Tagore spoke so positively about our national movement, and his writings were translated into Hebrew. היו מי שישבו את דמותו, עטורת הזקן הלבן, לנביאי ישראל. מילים שיצאו בהודו דיברו אלינו, וכך גם מספרים שיצאו מהודו. דודי המנוח, פרופסור אלישע נתניהו, זיכרונו לברכה, היה ממקימי הפקולטה למתמטיקה בטכניון. That's our equivalent of MIT. הדוד אלישע תמיד דיבר איתי בהערצה על המתמטיקאים ההודים, ובייחוד הוא הזכיר את רמנוג'ן. הזכיר אותו הרבה פעמים, כי התגליות הגאוניות של רמנוג'ן בתחילת המאה ה-20 שינו את פני המתמטיקה. רמנוג'ן בא מהעם. הוא בא מהעם. הוא לא בא מהאוניברסיטה. גם אתה באת מהעם. אתה צמחת מהעם. אתה עלית מעלה כי ידעת מהם השורשים שלך. ובכן, כל זה קרה בתחילת המאה הקודמת. ולקראת סוף המאה הקודמת, הודו וישראל כוננו יחסים מלאים, ואחת התוצאות של מפנה דיפלומטי זה היא תנועת המטיילים הישראלים אל המזרח. עשרות אלפי ישראלים, צעירים ומבוגרים, מבקרים מדי שנה בהודו. הם מתפעלים מהכל, ממה שיש היום וגם מהמורשת התרבותית העתיקה. והם מספרים שאחד מאזרחי הודו שואל מטייל בישראל, כמה אתם? והישראלי עונה לו, 10 מיליון. וההודי ממשיך, וכמה בישראל? לא 1.5 מיליארד, אבל רבים שמעריצים את הודו, מחבקים את הודו, ורוצים גם לבוא להודו. אחד מהם זה אני, וגם רעייתי פה, אנחנו רוצים ביקור חוזר, זה בטוח. את זה כבר חילצתי, אני כבר אומר לכם, הישג דיפלומטי ראשון, נביא את הממשלה להודו. לא רק שנביא את ראש ממשלת הודו לממשלה, נביא את הממשלה, את ממשלת ישראל להודו, לביקור. G2G. בביקורך הנוכחי, they all want to come. בביקור הנוכחי שלך בישראל, אנחנו נהדק עוד יותר את הקשרים בינינו, גם האישיים וגם המדינתיים, כי יחד אנחנו מובילים מהלכים בקנה מידה היסטורי. זה קורה בוודאי ביחס לאתגרי הביטחון ולהזדמנויות בביטחון, אבל זה לא רק בביטחון. אנחנו יוצרים צירי פעולה חדשניים בכלכלה, במסחר, באנרגיה, בטכנולוגיה, בסייבר, בבינה מלאכותית ובחלל. בחלל, גם כן. שר הביטחון ישראל, אתה מרבה לדבר על זה, והנה, תדע שיש כאן אוזן קשבת. אנחנו מפתחים יחד את יוזמת איימק. זה מסדרון ימי ויבשתי שיחבר את הודו דרך חצי האי ערב. יחבר אותה לנמל חיפה, ומכאן לים התיכון ולאירופה. ואיימק, המסדרון היבשתי ימי הזה, יכול להתקיים ולשגשג רק אם יעבור דרך מדינות יציבות ובטוחות. ואין מדינות חזקות ובטוחות יותר בציר הזה מאשר הודו וישראל. ולכן אני מברך על המחויבות שלך לכך שישראל תהיה חוליה מחברת בין אסיה לאירופה דרך נמל חיפה. בביקור הזה שלך אני איישם גם הסכמים בתיירות, בתרבות, בחקלאות, במים, בהתפלה, וברוח הסכמי אברהם לשלום אנחנו נמשיך את המהפכה של בריתות חדשות, של הגברת היציבות האזורית, של חיזוק החוסן, הקדמה והשגשוג. אני רוצה שתשימו לב, אנחנו לא רק מגיבים למציאות, אנחנו מעצבים את המציאות, מתוך קרבה ואמון גדולים מאי פעם. ידידי נרנדרה, מאז ביקורך האחרון בישראל, הקודם, ב-2017, מים רבים זרמו בנהר הגנגס בהודו, כמו גם בים התיכון, שם טבלנו שנינו את רגלינו ביום קיץ נפלא. אבל מאז אני מבקש לעדכן אתכם שאנחנו שומרים על קשר רצוף. אנחנו מדברים עשרות פעמים בטלפון, שיחות כל כך גלויות, כל כך חבריות, עם חום הלב, חום אמיתי ולא מעושה. אנחנו הוספנו מאז לקדם את היחסים בינינו, אנחנו טיפחנו את הקשר בין שני העמים, שבכל אחד מהם יש הרבה סקרנות והרבה כישרון. אני זוכר את החוויה מרטיטת הלב שביקרנו יחד איתך במחוז גוג'ראט, שם גדלת, שם היית למושל, ושם המושל מודי גילה את הגאוניות של החקלאות בישראל והביא אותה להודו, ומשם זה התפשט לכל הודו. ובכן, ביקרנו שם, וכשביקרנו בגוג'ראט, מאות אלפים של התושבים עמדו ברחובות והריעו ונופפו בדגלי ישראל והודו, והיה שם גם שלט ענק בעברית, ענק, כמו כל הבניין הזה. ברוכים הבאים, בעברית. אז היום, מכובדי, אתה שוב בישראל, אתה מתקבל כאן באותה קבלה חמה, באותה קרבת לבבות. במאה ה-21 אנחנו נביא את הברית בין ישראל להודו לגבהים חסרי תקדים, ואני בטוח שיום יבוא, אני בטוח, כי כשביקרנו בהודו אתה הבאת מופע של האומנים הפנטסטיים מבוליווד. אז אני אומר, יבוא יום ויעשו סרט בהוליווד על סיפור האחווה בין שתי המדינות, ואני מבטיח לכם, זה יהיה סרט שובר קופות. ראש הממשלה מודי, ידידי היקר נרנדרה, אני מברך אותך מעומק ליבי, אותך ואת פמלייתך. ברוכים הבאים תהיו כולכם בישראל, בירושלים, בחברות אמת ובהוקרת אמת. ברוכים הבאים.
תודה לראש הממשלה, ואני מזמין כעת את ראש האופוזיציה, חבר הכנסת יאיר לפיד, לשאת דברים. בבקשה.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'm only going to take a minute of your time to make sure you know whatever happened here today has nothing to do with you. The entire state of Israel. Let's try and not make things worse. The entire state of Israel is filled with admiration to your leadership, to your friendship, to the fact that you were here for us in our time of trouble, and to the alliance, the eternal alliance between our two states. So thank you very much for being here, and we are all, both sides of the aisle, looking forward to hear your speech. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
אני מתכבד, חברות וחברי הכנסת, אני מתכבד כעת להזמין את ראש ממשלת הודו, מר נרנדרה מודי, לשאת דברים. בבקשה.
His Excellency, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, His Excellency Mr. Amir Ohana, Speaker of the Knesset, His Excellency Mr. Yair Lapid, Leader of the Opposition, Honorable members of the Knesset, my dear sisters and brothers, Shalom. Namaste. Honorable members, it is a privilege and an honor for me to stand before this distinguished House. I do so as the Prime Minister of India and also as a representative of one ancient civilization addressing another. I bring with me the greetings of 1.4 billion Indians and a message of friendship, respect, and partnership. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your kind invitation and for your wonderful gesture of lighting up the Knesset in Indian colors. Your visit to India 3 years ago was the first by a Speaker of the Knesset, and thanks to you, I am the first Prime Minister of India to address this august gathering. Nine years ago, I had the good fortune to be the first Prime Minister of India to visit Israel. And I'm very happy to be here again, returning to a land to which I have always felt drawn. After all, I was born on the same day that India formally recognized Israel, September 17, 1950. Honorable members, I also carry with me the deepest condolences of the people of India for every life lost and for every family whose world was shattered in the barbaric terrorist attack by Hamas on October 7. We feel your pain. We share your grief. India stands with Israel firmly, with full conviction in this moment and beyond. No cause can justify the murder of civilians. Nothing can justify terrorism. India has also endured the pain of terrorism for a long time. We remember the 26/11 Mumbai attacks and the innocent lives lost, including Israeli citizens. Like you, we have consistent and uncompromising policy of zero tolerance for terrorism with no double standards. Terrorism aims to destabilize societies, to block development, and to erode trust. Countering terrorism requires sustained and coordinated global action because terror anywhere threatens peace everywhere. That is why India supports all efforts that contribute to durable peace and regional stability. Some years ago, when you concluded the Abraham Accords, we applauded your courage and vision. It was a moment of new hope for a long troubled region. Since then, the situation has changed significantly. The path is even more challenging. Yet, it is important to sustain that hope. The Gaza Peace Initiative that was endorsed by the UN Security Council offers a pathway. India has expressed its firm support for the initiative. We believe that it holds the promise of a just and durable peace for all the people of the region, including by addressing the Palestine issue. Let all our efforts be guided by wisdom, courage, and humanity. The road to peace is not always easy, but India joins you and the world for dialogue, peace, and stability in this region. Honorable members, in India, there is a great admiration for Israel's resolve, courage, and achievements. Long before we related to each other as modern states, we were linked by ties that go back more than 2,000 years. The book of Esther refers to India as Hodu. The Talmud records trade with India in ancient times. Jewish merchants traveled across sea routes that connected the Mediterranean with the Indian Ocean. They came seeking opportunity and dignity. And in India, they became one of us. Jewish communities have lived in India without fear of persecution or discrimination. They have preserved their faith and participated fully in society. That record is a source of pride for us. Honorable members, the Bene Israel of Maharashtra, the Kochini Jews of Kerala, the Baghdadi Jews of Kolkata and Mumbai, and the Bene Menashe of the Northeast have enriched India. In my home state, Gujarat, there is a school set up by a Bene Israeli family, Mr. and Mrs. Best. It is an excellent school, and of course, it is called the Best School. Edwin Myers gave shape to the film's division of India and was a towering figure in the history of Indian cinema. Dr. Rubin David was the founder of the Kankaria Jew in Ahmedabad. The actor David Abraham Cheulkar, or Uncle David, become a household name across the country. Walter Kaufman composed the signature tune for All India Radio. David Sassoon built many institutions that still serve Indian society. And of course, the heroic contribution of Lieutenant General J.F.R. Jacob during the 1970 war with Pakistan is widely known. I had the honor of working closely with him after his retirement. We discussed India-Israel relations, among many other things, over many cups of tea. There have been countless others whose contributions are woven into India's rich fabric of life. Honorable members, there was movement from India to Israel too, when many Indian Jews migrated to Israel in the mid-20th century. Today, a vibrant Indian origin Jewish community lives here. They are contributed to the building of modern Israel in laboratories and hospitals, in classrooms, and also on the battlefield. They hold firmly that Israel is their fatherland and India their motherland. We are proud of them. Honorable members, India's connection to this land is also written in blood and sacrifice. During the First World War, more than 4,000 Indian soldiers laid down their lives in this region. The cavalry charge at Haifa in September 1918 remains a significant chapter in military history. Major Thakur Dalpat Singh, remembered as the hero of Haifa, symbolized the shared history. During my last visit, I was deeply moved to pay my respect at the Haifa Memorial for Indian soldiers. Honorable members, last month, the world marked the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The Holocaust stands as one of humanity's darkest chapters. Yet, even in those turbulent years, some acts of humanity stood out. The Maharaja of Navanagar in Gujarat, also known as the Jam Sahib, offered refuge to Polish children, including Jewish children who had nowhere else to turn. I am told that a statue of Jam Sahib was unveiled in Moshav Nevatim recently. Thank you. Thank you for this honor and remembrance. Honorable members, after India's independence, many Indian leaders felt a kinship with the people of Israel. India's parliamentary debates of the 1950s are witness to their admiration for Israel's effort to develop agriculture in the desert. The kibbutz movement of Israel inspired our leaders like Acharya Vinoba Bhave and Loknayak Jayaprakash Narayan. First in my home state, Gujarat, and now across India, I've seen the approach of per drop, more crop work wonders in agriculture. My own first visit to Israel was in 2006 as the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Later in 2017, during my visit to Israel as Prime Minister, our two countries elevated the relationship to a strategic partnership. Since then, our engagement has expanded in scale and scope, and we are committed to further consolidate this relationship across many sectors. Honorable members, for the last few years, India has been the fastest growing major economy in the world. Soon, we will be among the top 3 economies globally. At the same time, Israel is a powerhouse of innovation and technological leadership. This creates a natural foundation for our forward-looking partnership. We are committed to expanding trade, strengthening investment flows, and promoting joint infrastructure development. The bilateral investment treaty signed last year will provide confidence and predictability to our businesses. In the last few years, India has concluded a number of important trade agreements with other nations. To your west, the European Union and the UK. To your east, the UAE and Oman. Our bilateral goods trade has grown significantly in recent years, but it does not reflect the full scope of opportunity. That is why our teams are working hard to negotiate an ambitious free trade agreement. It will unlock the vast untapped potential in our trade relationship. We will also work closely in different formats, such as India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, and the I2U2 framework between India, Israel, UAE, and the US. Defense and security is another important pillar of our partnership. In November last year, we signed an MOU on defense cooperation. In today's uncertain world, a strong defense partnership between trusted partners like India and Israel is of vital importance. Honorable members, Israel is often called the startup nation. In recent years, we have also been working to unlock the innovation and creativity of our youth. I recall that in 2018, Prime Minister Netanyahu and I inaugurated the I Create Technology Business Incubator in India. Since then, it has supported nearly 900 such startups. Last week, we hosted the world's largest and the most democratized AI Impact Summit with representatives from over 100 countries. Our aspirational spirit aligns naturally with Israel's innovation ecosystem. I see a lot of synergies in areas such as quantum technologies, semiconductors, and artificial intelligence. We are also working with Israel on creating cross-border financial linkages using our digital public infrastructure. Honorable members, I mentioned how inspiring we found Israel's agricultural miracle in desert. Israeli expertise in precision irrigation and water management has already transformed agricultural practices in India. Together, we have established 43 centers of excellence across India that have provided training to more than 500,000 farmers. We should now set an ambitious goal to expanding to 100 centers to benefit millions of farmers and fishermen. Honorable members, at the heart of the India-Israel partnership are the ties between our peoples. When I first visited Israel in 2006, there were a handful of yoga centers in Israel. Today, yoga seems to be practiced in almost every neighborhood. I am told that interest in Ayurveda is also growing in Israel. I invite more and more young Israelis to travel to India. They will witness the dynamism of our society and experience what holistic wellness can do for the body and the mind. I'm happy to inform this August House that the Indian Parliament has set up a parliamentary friendship group for Israel. I invite you all to visit India and look forward to having more exchanges between our members of parliament. I am aware that Indian caregivers and skilled workers in Israel contribute immensely to families and communities. They have displayed remarkable courage and dedication in times of crisis, including on October 7. We are proud of them. As the Jewish teachings reminds us, whoever saves one life saves the entire world. Their service reflects the strength of the human bonds behind our cooperation. We will continue to facilitate the movement of workers and professionals across sectors that benefit both of our nations. Honorable members, we are both ancient civilizations, and it is perhaps no surprise that our civilizational traditions also reveal philosophical parallels. In Israel, the principle of Tikkun Olam speaks of healing the world. In India, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam affirms that the world is one family. Both ideas extend responsibility beyond immediate boundaries. They ask societies to act with compassion and moral courage. Judaism emphasizes halakha, guiding everyday conduct through law and practice. Hindu philosophy speaks of dharma, the moral order that shapes duty and right action. In both traditions, ethical life is lived through action and faith is expressed through conduct. There is an enduring similarity in our festivals as well. You celebrate Hanukkah with the warm glow of candles. Around the same time, we celebrate Diwali, the festival of lights, with the gentle radiance of lamps. Soon, India will celebrate the festival of Holi, filled with happiness and color. And around the same time, Israel will also celebrate Purim with enthusiasm and joy. Honorable members, our shared ideals are the deep foundations that give strength to our modern partnership. We are democracies shaped by history and focused on the future. Our partnership is grounded in shared experience and shared aspirations. Our strong partnership not only serves national interests, but also contributes to global stability and prosperity. Let us ensure that the friendship between India and Israel remains a source of strength in an uncertain world. Am Israel Chai. Jai Hind. Thank you.
חברות וחברי הכנסת, אני מתכבד להעניק לראשונה בתולדות המשכן את עיטור הכנסת, אות הכבוד הגבוה ביותר שבית המחוקקים הישראלי יעניק לראש ממשלת הרפובליקה של הודו, נרנדרה מודי, כהוקרה על הובלתו האישית לחיזוק היחסים המדיניים בין הודו לבין ישראל ועל תרומתו להעמקת שיתופי הפעולה בתחומי הביטחון, הכלכלה, החקלאות, החדשנות, הטכנולוגיה ועוד. מנהיגותו, כפי שיכולתם להתרשם כולכם, מבטאת ידידות אמיצה ומחויבות לשותפות ארוכת טווח המבוססת על ערכים משותפים ואינטרסים משותפים בין שתי המדינות. בבקשה, אדוני.
Well, there you have it, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We see him being given a medal in front of the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset, after he addressed all the lawmakers there in West Jerusalem. His speech was done in English, which is a significant statement coming from the Indian Prime Minister. It followed Benjamin Netanyahu's speech, in which both leaders both addressed Israeli lawmakers from across the aisle. It is a civilian honour in which Narendra Modi has just been awarded. We've just seen Benjamin Netanyahu speak, and now we're seeing Narendra Modi greet the members of the Knesset there in West Jerusalem. There has been a huge warming of relations just in the past decade or so. Modi made a lot of comments, acknowledged India's deep ties with Israel and said it's an honour to stand in the Knesset with the greeting of 1.4 billion Indians. He, of course, brought up the October the 7th Hamas attack, condemned the violence that occurred on that day and expressed solidarity with Israeli victims. Modi said India stands firmly with Israel, firmly with full conviction, he says. Joining us now is Mark Sutherland, a geopolitical commentator. He joins us live from London. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Wondering if you had listened just there to the address which Narendra Modi has just made to the parliamentarians in Jerusalem. Of course, a compelling speech after Modi, of course, addressing them in English. Israel and India, what more can you tell us about the relations there? Over the past decade, things that have severely warmed between the two nations. Why is that?
Good to be with you, Thomas. Well, I think there is no doubt about it that if whatever your beliefs are, but I believe this, and this is a truism, that if you are then seeking to have warm relationships with Israel, there's quite a blessing that then unfolds from that. But let's examine it. There are deep historical roots that of many Jews that have then been living in India over for many centuries, and then of course, as Israel was then founded as a country on May the 14th, 1948, which is, but to some is saying 76, 77 years old, but 3,500 years old, as the people came back into their historical homeland. There are many Jewish people and Jewish communities, as Modi talked about, that have been in India for many years, and many of them left when the nation of Israel was then formed. There are still Jewish communities within India. And many of them left to then go and live in the new and reinstituted country of Israel in May the 14th, 1948. And what was fascinating to me as well, listening to some of that, is Modi very personalizing it. When he said, you know, I was born when India recognized Israel as a country. So there is definite warmth there. If you look at German Jewish communities as well within Europe, that diaspora then seeking having refuge in India and speaking Yiddish, there is so many connections there that are historical, and in the diplomatic world, to many at times, these quite rightly these are very important links, Thomas. And of course he then laid out the help that they will be seeking from Israel in regard to solving agricultural problems, turning around and saying, you know, referring to what Israel has done with deserts. I've also seen those with my own eyes, and it is miraculous. So all of this, and then this cross section of technology, and also technology in regard to, as he talks about, computer chips and another manufacturing, and just learning from each other. So lots of positives, but coming from deep historical roots. Thomas.
Indeed. And the address before Narendra Modi's, Benjamin Netanyahu, he praised the hug and the warm relations between the two leaders personally. He called Modi not just like a friend, but like a brother and a key champion of the India-Israel partnership. How important is that leader-to-leader relationship in this bilateral relationship here? Because, of course, Modi was the first ever Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel in 2017. And of course, they were photographed famously in the sea together, and have Benjamin Netanyahu having visited India many times. So how crucial is that relationship between Modi and Netanyahu? And what can you tell us about between the two men and why they get on so well?
Again, I think it does come down to the historical roots, and this is very, very important. And countries, Israel will really acknowledge all of those historical roots, and especially when countries have stood by the Jewish people. That is not something that they take lightly for obvious reasons, and we only have to think of the Shoah and the events that happened during this Second World War, and the extermination of a minimum of 6 million Jews and others. So this is real. It was a big moment for Modi to step out and to take that visit, as you have quite rightly said, in 2017. And also people looking at things strategically. India, I don't have to tell you, 1.4 billion people has been referred to in those speeches. It's a big marketplace. And also it then desires the technology and the advancement and the skills that Israel can then offer India and the Indian people. So it's all mixed up in that, but it comes from historical roots, and that is why I believe then Modi took that risk. 2017, of course, there'd been behind the scenes there would have been a softening, and the diplomats on both sides would have been working hard to make sure that visit happened, which it did in 2017. With that photograph that you referred to, Thomas.
Indeed. Modi, of course, there strongly referencing the October the 7th Hamas attacks, and reiterated India's zero tolerance policy towards terrorism. India has drawn these parallels between October the 7th and the Mumbai attacks, as we heard it in those messages. However, officially, India still supports a two-state solution. Can India support Israel's security doctrine without alienating itself from the global south with these commitments and these statements?
Well, I mean, also when you say with the global south, we could then look at where is India then buying oil from, and Russian ghost ships. There are so many factors geopolitically that are playing out. That's why you and I are constantly having these discussions, and other people are. Well, we're trying to understand what is going on in regard to a two-state solution. If you ask me that honestly, I do not see that will be on the table from an Israeli point of view. But behind doors, we are not privy to the private conversations that happen with Prime Minister Netanyahu and Modi. We're not privy to that. But I'm sure that when that comes up in conversation, if it does, that Bibi Netanyahu will really lay out his views in that regard. And I'm sure it will be a very, very interesting conversation. You and I both know at times that diplomatically, some people, they are then couching things all the time because they're looking back, they're trying to keep people on side. I may have different views on that, where I just want people to be honest about all of these things. But it is part of that diplomacy as well, and the diplomatic game that is then played. And I'm sure they'll also then have another discussion over the President Trump's board of peace, and that Gaza will come up, and what is happening there, and to be mindful of the fact that Hamas is still not completely disarmed. And when President Modi is then Prime Minister Modi is bringing up Mumbai, this, of course, with the terrorism that the Indian people have had to face as well, and wanting to deal with that, and also just quickly that they will then get help from Israeli intelligence services about these issues as well. So that is another connection that I am sure that is extremely important to the Indian government.
And also, of course, I'm sure what the two leaders discussed, the escalating tensions in the region right now between the United States and Iran. India actually maintains strategic energy and infrastructure ties with Iran. Openly embracing Israel at this level complicates regional diplomacy here. How does India manage to balance these Iran and Israel ties? I can't think of any other country that does the same thing.
Yeah, Thomas, you're absolutely right, and that's a very, very good assessment of it. I don't know, in one sense, I don't know how they've managed to do that. However, as I refer to Russian ghost ships, we look at all the links that it has, and also we remember how President Trump has been very, very annoyed the fact that India has been doing that, because then according to him, we respect that it continues the war with the Ukraine. I don't know. On one hand, I've got to be careful to not read too much into this, with also the fact that half of the US fleet is in the area, and with various aircraft, etc., and American military personnel. But it may also be helping to contribute to the fact that things need to end. Behaviour in regard to Iran has to change dramatically, and we must be mindful of the appalling oppression of its own citizens, of the Persian people of Iran that's just happened, and whether that figure is 35,000 or 100,000, where they have injured, killed their own people. And also maybe the Indian government feels that they can, through diplomacy they could be part of solving that problem in regard to what is going on with the regime in Iran. Thomas.
Indeed, and India is positioning itself as a global power, fourth with the fourth highest GDP in the world now. But it also engages with Israel, the United States, Arab states, and even Iran, as we've just mentioned. Do you think India is emerging as an independent power broker here, or gradually aligning clearly towards the Western Israel bloc?
Well, I have to say, I take my hat off to them. Is that we also know that diplomacy, talk, it helps on all sides, especially if it's ending wars and disputes that are really important to particular people groups. That's a positive thing. Also, the Modi administration wants to see India do well economically, and to bring up the standard of living of Indian citizens that are outside its big cities, but to give access of, as I say, of increasing their standard of living to those people. Thomas, without sort of brushing it off, we're going to have to wait and see how these things will unfold. And again, you and I, sadly, we're not privy to those sort of private conversations, and I think that is what is going on. They're talking to everyone. They're trying to build those economic links. When you've got 1.4 billion people within your vast country, that's one of your biggest concerns. That's extremely important, Thomas.
And this bilateral trade now, $10 billion annually, strong cooperation in drones, missile systems, AI, agriculture, water, and in tech as well. Do you think this relationship is primarily about defense? We've, of course, just seen the likes of the AI Impact Summit here in New Delhi. Israel, of course, a huge hub when it comes to innovation, technology, among others. Do you expect the two countries to work together when it comes to that sector? Israelis were very, very complimentary of how the India AI Summit was put together, the leaders it attracted. India, of course, is also one of Israel's largest defense customers as well. What more can you tell us about the partnership there?
Well, Israel is also looking to extend its technology provision and to then expand its economy through that arm. There is no doubt about it, because at the end of the day, you have to look at the experience that they have had, especially in recent years, but of course since their founding in 1948 and all the battles and the people groups that have come against them, and then since October the 7th, you then look at the Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Iran. And they are very much still there, and that is due to the technology that they have, and of course as well in regard to, and this is important because other countries are looking at this in regard to the money that they get from America, where it funds the military-industrial complex in America. It's a proven ground. That technology goes out to Israel, it's then proven there. They then use it. All that data then goes back to America. Other countries are then looking at that as well in regard to that data. Now, AI has going to be interesting. There's huge, on a personal level, I feel there's huge moral issues in regard to AI and how countries are going to then using that. And as that expounds into one's economy, is that pushing humanity out of work. It raises some huge moral issues, but those technological links are growing, and they are happening, and we have to watch that and keep an eye on that as to some extent, whether we need to make sure we're not going to be in that position where we're asking Sarah Connor of the Terminator film games to actually come back. But there is a lot to keep an eye on, Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark Sutherland. Pleasure to have you here on the programme. We are now joined by two more guests. Sol Sadka is a political commentator. He joins us live from Tel Aviv. Also joining us is retired Major General A.K. Siwach. He's a geostrategic expert. He joins us live from New Delhi. I want to start with you, Major General A.K. Siwach. Of course, this was a significant session. India, of course, only normalizing proper diplomatic ties with Israel in 1992, and today it seemed like the two had never been closer. And so this is a rather new relationship. Narendra Modi, of course, the first Prime Minister to visit the country. What more can you tell us about Narendra Modi's speech? What did you watch it? He, of course, addressed the Knesset in English, has now received an honor, a civilian honor from Israel. You can see there him having a medal put around his neck. Of course, this terrorism narrative was very, very strong in his speech as well. Major General Siwach, what can you tell us?
3-4 things stand out as far as the speech of Prime Minister Modi is concerned. One thing is about terrorism. No doubt about it. He spoke very high that terrorism is not acceptable. Terrorism does not have any boundaries. And the point he also mentioned, what happened on 7th October was a genocide created by Hamas, where about 1,200 civilians were killed and more than 250 were taken as a prisoner. And we, both nation, India as well as Israel, are cooperating to fight against this menace of terrorism. That was a very important thing he spoke. Second thing is, he said that Israel is a powerhouse of technology and also startup, and therefore India and Israel need to coordinate and cooperate There's a requirement of joint production, joint manufacturing of especially our defense items, and with the transfer of technology. That was again a very important point which he has spoken. He's spoken about trade. Basically, he mentioned about IMC, India military, India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, which is going to become a reality in another 10 years, which will go from India to Middle East, crossing over from UAE, Saudi Arabia to Israel, and then going to Europe. That will be the shortest route, which is going from Asia to Europe, and will have almost 7 to 8% world trade in time to come. It also mentioned about basically Chabar port in a passing phase. But another thing which he talked also Abraham Accord, and where he said that was a very brave move. Abraham Accord was a step in the right direction to bring peace and tranquility in Middle East. And he spoke basically that giving an impression that dialogue and diplomacy is the key word. The peace must prevail, and war is not a solution for any conflict or dispute. That's the point which he again spoken. I2U2 he also spoken about. India, Israel, US and UAE. This coordination, collaboration can also make a lot of difference. What happened is why India is acceptable in Middle East, because India has friends all around. India is the only country which has got the best of the relation with all the Muslim countries in Middle East, whether it is Saudi, UAE, Oman, Jordan, Bahrain, Lebanon, and it has also very good relation with Israel. It has also very good relation with Iran. So therefore, India is in position that can also contribute in peace and trying to bring them together. That's a very important thing. India wants to maintain a strategic autonomy. India wants to maintain good relations with all the countries. And that is what is important there. Of course, Prime Minister Modi has mentioned that India always stand with Israel in any time when Israel needs India. But at the same time, he was trying to bring out, it is peace which is very important than a war.
Major General, of course, there has been the Narendra Modi pushed for peace. That's what he said when it comes on the Palestinian issue. Israelis must push for peace. However, of course, India recognizes both Israel and Palestine. Now India officially supports the two-state solution. But what does Narendra Modi's lack of a visitation or perhaps a visitation to a Palestinian official, Mahmoud Abbas, maybe say about the nature of his visit here? Of course, he did acknowledge the Palestinian issue in his speech. However, what were your thoughts on that?
India is very clear on one issue. One is that India enjoys strategic autonomy. India is not under pressure of anyone. As far as the Palestine issue is concerned, India is crystal clear that the only peace can prevail with the fact that there has to be a two-state solution where the Israel as well as Palestine can coexist peacefully. So India has made it very clear time and again. As far as the Palestine is concerned, we are not ready to compromise. We think that Palestine and Israel both need to exist and both need to exist peacefully. I think this possibly is our stand, and we will very firm on that. And Prime Minister Modi has time and again told, in spite of this, whenever it comes to United Nations, when it comes to a two-state solution in United Nations, we have always taken a side of two-state solution. And I think Israel also knows our stand is very, very clear on this issue. Because what we feel is that the peace must prevail. And the peace can only prevail when there are a compromise, when there is something called give and take. If you take a very hard stand on one issue, and then that peace can't prevail. So I suppose that's a very important thing which Prime Minister Modi has been talking about in last about 10 to 12 years of his rule. Second thing is, we have been always maintaining the best of the relation with Israel. Israel has stood by India in time of requirement, whether it is Operation Sindhu, whether it was 1971 war, or whether thereafter, it has stood by India. But at the same time, we have a very good relation with other Muslim countries, whether it is Saudi, UAE, Oman, Jordan, or we have a good relation with Iran. Remember, why these are very important countries, because our energy requirement comes from Middle East, and it comes through Strait of Hormuz. And in case if there is a war which takes place between Iran and US, it will be catastrophic for the economy of the whole world, not only of Middle East, because 20% of oil comes, and are about 28% of our requirement comes from Strait of Hormuz. So India wants to have peace. India wants dialogue. India wants, all the countries should be able to stay peacefully with each other. Therefore, India has the best of the relation with the Muslim world, including Iran and also Israel.
Okay. Sol Sadka joins us now on the broadcast. What more can you tell us about the interpersonal relationship between Modi and Benjamin Netanyahu? It was a significant speech coming out from the Indian Prime Minister today in the Israeli Parliament. Sol, what more can you tell us?
Well, it does seem like they have a good personal relationship, which would mean a lot in international relations, as we've seen with Netanyahu's personal relationship with Trump over the past few years, has made a huge difference to geopolitics. That's the kind of thing that can really shift the lever. However, most likely, both sides fundamentally see a huge amount of self-interest in the potential relationships between Israel and India. India stands to benefit tremendously from any kind of tech relationship, any import-export relationship with Israel. And Israel, of course, also will benefit that. But the Israeli population lives essentially with a very high standard of living due to all the technology. But there are only 10.5 million Israelis, whereas India has 1.4 billion people, so 130 times more people. And if the benefits of Israeli technology, which is some of the best in the world in a number of fields, including agriculture, could be spread to India, the Indian economy could thrive to the benefit of so many people, and it would be a wonderful thing to see.
Indeed, and Modi, of course, they're strongly referencing the October 7th attacks, reiterated India's zero tolerance policy towards terrorism. Do you think, however, India can support Israel's security doctrine without alienating the global south or the Arab world?
Well, the Arab world, mostly the moderate elements of the Arab world are already firmly behind Israel, at least when they are cornered in a closed room. Even despite what they might say in public, they certainly understand where their bread is buttered as regards security. Everyone is waiting over the next decade or so for the Americans to pull out of the Middle East. It's a process that's been ongoing for 20 years and will continue. And at which point there will be very little power left in the Middle East that isn't connected to Israel in some way. Israel has built alliances with the UAE and with Bahrain, and tacitly with Saudi. They already have essentially a symbiotic relationship with Egypt and Jordan. Those economies are fundamentally dependent on Israel in a number of ways, and becoming more dependent on Israel in a number of ways. So all those nations are already relatively aligned with Israel. And the plan essentially is for India to join up with Israel and Saudi Arabia and build essentially a bridge to Europe, which will bridge the entire world and will stand as a bulwark and a challenge to China and a rival essentially to them, which would be worrying for them, but there's not really much they can do about it. India certainly has the ambition to surpass China over the next decades, and that might happen too. And the benefits that both sides will gain from a better relationship are beyond comprehension if it's done properly.
And so, is India emerging as an independent power broker here? Of course, it has a relationship with the global south as a member of BRICS, but also aligned with the United States and now very much strongly with Israel and Europe as well, of course. How and what do you analyze of the way that India positions itself here?
Right. Well, the thing about BRICS is that really a lot of the countries in it don't really like each other very much, except on paper. They're not an alliance in any meaningful sense. Some of them hate each other. When push comes to shove, they have no shared interest except the fact that they are what is termed developing nations. Now, all those developing nations, if given the opportunity, would rather not be developing nations and would rather be developed nations. And please God, soon, maybe in a generation, India will be able to join that club. And India should certainly look in that direction. If BRICS, the global south, in inverted commas as people call it, is a club of less developed nations, then everyone in that club should have the ambition, at least for the welfare of their people, to leave that club. Nobody should see being a member of the global south as a credit, as something to be proud of. It's something to be surpassed, whatever that means. I mean, India is not in the south by any means at all, but as far as I recall. So the ambition of India, which has fundamentally a potential, huge potential. It has some of the most educated people in the world. It has a vast workforce. It has a relatively stable birth rate. It has natural resources, and it has alliances potentially with people that can provide it everything that it lacks. Then why would India not want to ally with those people that can give it what it wants? India, for example, if given the choice of an alliance between them and Israel, or an alliance between them and, for example, South Africa, a member of BRICS, or Brazil, a fundamental basket case economy, they would certainly be better off making such an alliance with Israel. It will certainly get them further in the world. And my guess is that Modi, who is a man who certainly loves his country and has dedicated his life to its furtherance and the betterment of the lives of Indian people, understands that fully. And the past 2.5 years or so, where Israel has faced the enemies, similar jihadi enemies to the ones India faces on some of its borders, and has faced in the past with terrorism inside its cities, has recognized that Israel's reaction to that is a model for what they want to be doing in the future.
And so India, of course, it manages a relationship with Iran as well. How does it balance this, and how do you think if these relations are going to move forward, these are going to change? Of course, it has a relationship with the Gulf as well, and huge infrastructure ties with Iran, such as the Chabahar port. Openly embracing Israel at this level complicates this regional diplomacy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my guess is that Modi has recognized which side has more power and which side has more to offer them, and it certainly isn't Iran, with its essentially on the brink of bankruptcy, complete national bankruptcy, unable to provide its people with water or electricity or gas. So at that point, and recognizing that too, we're talking about Iran right now, but everyone understands that the chances are that within a month or two, Iran might be under new management. And Modi probably knows much more about that than most people, seeing as he is part of the global cognoscenti. He probably knows more than we know, and he is understanding which way the winds are shifting. Although this visit was planned long in advance, the build-up of American military might in every direction around Iran, from the south, from the north, from the east, and from the west, gives us the impression that either the Iranians are going to give up their belligerent attitude and their offensive weapons, as Trump has demanded, or they are going to be pounded to the point where they won't have those weapons significantly. And time will only tell, but my guess is, like I said, so Modi is a man who understands money. He understands where power lies, and he is following that. He is doing that for the betterment of his own people. And he has obviously seen that Iran cannot provide anything of that order, and Israel can, and Israel is increasingly allied with all those Arab states, which you mentioned, and he understands that the global south is not going to be able to help him. On the contrary, they too are needy, and he needs to make alliances with people that can be useful to his people.
But also, India's trade with Gulf nations far outweighs its trade with Israel. Millions of Indians work in the likes of the UAE, Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Energy security depends heavily on the Gulf nations for for India. So realistically, India can't afford to alienate Arab capitals here. Has the Abraham Accords made India's balancing act easier, do you think?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I would agree with that. But without the Abraham Accords and the essential tacit peace between some countries that India really depends on for oil, perhaps Modi would have been more reluctant. Perhaps he would have not been happy to speak in the Israeli parliament. Perhaps he would have gone harder on the two-state solution issue. But seeing as even places like the UAE no longer talk about that kind of thing, it seems that he is not too worried. He doesn't need to be more pro-Palestinian than the Arabs.
Saul Sadka, thank you so much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a great pleasure to talk to you here on the programme. We have some breaking news coming in now, where the US Treasury Department has imposed new Iran-related sanctions on individuals, several entities and tankers, hours after US President Donald Trump laid out his case for a possible attack in his State of the Union speech to Congress. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctioned over 30 individuals, entities and vessels it said enabled illicit Iranian petroleum sales and Iran's ballistic missile and advanced conventional weapons production. OFAC also targeted multiple networks that enable Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces logistics to secure the precursor materials and machinery required for ballistic missile and other weapons production, the Treasury has said. We move on now. US President Donald Trump's Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said that he saw progress in Ukraine-Russia talks since the first trilateral meeting in Geneva on February the 17th. Witkoff made the comment at the Pinchuk Foundation's yearly Yes Conference, where he spoke via video link. Rustem Uramov, the head of Ukraine's negotiating team, will meet in Geneva on February the 26th, with Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, to discuss post-war reconstruction, including a prosperity package, ahead of a new round of trilateral talks with Russia expected in March, President Volodymyr Zelensky has said. The Ukrainian president also says the US wanted to find a way to end the war as soon as possible. We now move over
I measure progress based on where we were in the original Geneva meeting. And I just don't think that, I think we've accomplished quite a bit since then. I think if you talk to the Ukrainian delegation that has been conducting these negotiations, they would assess that we've made more progress in the last 8 or 9 weeks than we've made in the last 4 years. And so I'm going to take that as a positive and hope that we can continue and build.
Next, we turn over to North America. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said notorious drug lord Nemeso Osegura, the operation led to retaliatory cartel violence across Mexico, involved US intelligence support. Sheinbaum shared details of the operation with Trump during their conversation, emphasizing the collaboration between Mexican and US authorities in tackling drug cartels. The call took place after the raid on Sunday that targeted Osegura. Let's listen in.
Sobre el otro, bueno, pues ya hemos explicado cuál fue la colaboración, que fue esencialmente en inteligencia, información, y toda la operación pues la desarrolló la Secretaría de la Defensa Nacional, como informamos adecuadamente. Informe del Estado de la Unión, así se llama. Y bueno, conocemos al presidente Trump. Pero la información que hemos dado pues es la correcta.
Well, that's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.